How's everybody doing today? Not too shabby? Have a little too much to drink last night? Come on. This is a coach's clinic. First off, guys, I appreciate it being 1 p.m. and you guys, this big group, being able to show up. I wanted to start off that there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in our world, and it's really cool that we can get a group of coaches to come here and continue to learn. It says a lot to you guys, and I hope you guys know how important you guys are to all your athletes. You start finding out as you keep on going down this coaching journey how big of an impact you guys can have without even knowing that, okay? Right off the bat, guys, my name is Colby Wortman. I'm originally out of the best state in the union, Wyoming, and I moved up to North Dakota, and I'm not in the oil field. So that's usually the first question that I get there. Right off the bat, guys, I'll have you guys take out your phones. Today we have 50 minutes. You find out that I talk way too long, and I talk. So I wanted to provide you, it doesn't look perfect on the mobile device, but on your laptop, it looks great. I wanted to provide some further details for you guys, some further things that you guys can implement right now, because the big thing that I don't want, because I've been to a lot of coaches conferences, I've spoke at some, listened to some, and it's great, and you learn new things, but then we get home and it's all out the window, and we tend to go back into our routines, okay? So I'm trying to give you guys something you can take home from this and then keep in further contact with me, so that we can hopefully help whatever and wherever you guys are at. And no issues getting that? Everybody good? Cool, awesome. So I will move from there. Right off the bat, guys, kind of where this journey has taken me from A to Z, okay? Originally grew up in Worland, Wyoming. Great town, great city. It's done much better nowadays than it has when I was in school. We didn't have a lot of success. I won 4 total football games, freshman through senior year, including the Shrine Bowl that we won. So 3 regular season games, okay? And I loved the city, I loved the town. It was put the football in the best athletes' hands, and it was just a small knit community that I really enjoyed. From there, went to Dickinson State University, where I played. I started 4 years at outside linebacker for the Blue Hawks, and I got like this cool mix. If you've ever heard of or have any relation to Dickinson State, you've heard the name Hank Bijou. Hank Bijou, one of the most winningest coaches of all time. I want to say he's top 10 on the all-time list. The coach from Minnesota is the #1 coach. But great atmosphere. And then I got that transition into Coach Stanton and this new dynasty that Coach Stanton has brought upon us, okay? From there, right out of college, I had zero idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to have an impact on kids to some extent. And so I got to be a high school strength and conditioning coach with a private company doing strength and conditioning for the local high school in town. Great opportunity, because I had no idea what I was doing, and I thought I had an idea of everything. It just doesn't work out like that. So from there, I did high school strength and conditioning. I was a grad assistant for softball at the college. And then I ended up going to Dickinson State University full-time. At that point, I had a contract there, and I had a very great opportunity to train football, men's and women's basketball, which is awesome, some softball. And it was an experience that I will never forget, and it's something that impacted what I do today beyond measure. Getting to do that, and I got my MBA there as well. And then after that, going down the list, became a power athlete block 1 coach. And the power athlete it's hard to put into words. It's grueling. Think of it as boot camp. You're not going to take a presentation online. You're not filling the boxes. You're doing the work. You're in the trenches. You're getting the crap beat out of you as you learn this methodology that you can apply to your athletes. Out of everything, that is one of the most influential things that I've ever got to do. And then right now till today, I am the sole owner of Next Level Training, a strength and conditioning company looking at elevating the lives, not just the athletic performance, the lives of all the athletes that we have. And our home base, our gym, I'm the owner of the Iron Chapel Strength and Conditioning Gym in Dickinson. There, I'm the head of athletic development, and we work with many different high schools, DHS athletes, Trinity athletes, and then very specifically, what we'll get to at the very end is Wright High School in Wyoming and Mission High School out of Montana. We instill a plug-and-play program for 365 days a year, not just for athletes, for students. This is plug and play right into your weight training class so that it takes the pressure off the PE teacher who has a knowledge base, right? But I train athletes day in and day out. I don't have to build a health curriculum. I don't have to talk about the birds and the bees with the kids. This is raw strength and conditioning, so we implant that plug and play system for those people. And that's kind of where we're at today. So, right off the bat, I'm going to ask a lot of questions, so we better get some responses. I want anybody, doesn't matter, what is your definition? What can you think of? What is athleticism? It's this secret squirrel in the room that we want our kids to get better at, but we don't know how to define it. What is yours without looking at my definition? What is your first thoughts of athleticism? What makes somebody athletic?
Move efficiently.
Yes, very good, very good. Moving efficiently is quite possibly one of the most important things. I need at least another one.
Yeah, moving quick.
Moving quick, yes. Yes, in the strength world we call it rate of force development. Moving maximal velocity in the minimal amount of time is the most important thing. People can move fast, but if it's moving fast over a long period of time, it doesn't matter, okay? So, our definition of athleticism is the ability to seamlessly and effortlessly combine primal movement patterns through space to accomplish a known or novel task, okay? So let's break that down a little bit. The ability to seamlessly and effortlessly, we have all seen this, whether it's track, basketball, football, wrestling, we've all seen the kid that thinks a lot, and we've seen the kid that doesn't and reacts. And I go back to Tyler Costin's speech about mind and no mind. This is a bigger deal than most people think. Being able to shut off the brain and react has a place in all sports, especially in the strength and conditioning world. And then to combine primal movement patterns. All human movement, and we're going to get to it here in a little bit, all human movement can be boiled down to our primal movements, okay? When you think of primal, don't think of caveman sharpening rocks, think of foundational, okay? Think of foundational movement. So we have the ability to seamlessly and effortlessly combine those primal movements because we don't take a barbell onto the court, okay? So we need to be able to use that tool so it's effective on the competition floor. Then through space to accomplish a known or novel task. The big problem with a lot of traditional strength and conditioning modalities, anybody heard of bigger, faster, stronger before? If you're a 90s kid, that's what we did. That's exactly what we did. Or a Jim Wendler 5-3-1, something of that nature, a powerlifting-esque. The thing about those is you're still doing primal movements, but we're not using those at the velocities that athletics need. And we're not, everything, I came up with a quote many years ago talking about if every movement that you're doing in your weight room can be done in a doorway, we're robbing our athletes. We have to be able to move side to side, move transversely, really get rotational power out of our athletes because every movement comes down to it unless you're a 100-meter sprinter. 100 meters, we're going, or a swimmer. Okay, so that's where we need to really make sure that we know how to move through space. And then a known or novel task. All athletics is sometimes you know exactly what you should do, right? But there's other people that are on the court that you have to play against. In football, I know I need to get to the A gap. Well, there's also a 300-pound nose guard in the A gap. So we have to be able to know what a known or a novel task is, okay? So I kind of want to see just very basically what sports do we got in here? Coaches, where are we at with that? What do you guys coach? Volleyball. Oh, I like it. Volleyball. Basketballs.
Football and track.
Football, track. You guys?
Football, wrestling, track.
Nice, wrestling. Basketball. Okay. Golf. I like it. We'll be talking about that. You guys? volleyball. Okay. So let's just take volleyball for example. Okay. We have to what we talk about in what is the demands of your sport, and then reverse engineering. So volleyball, what makes a volleyball player great? You say what you just were going to say. Jumping, yes. What else? Very important. So the demands of that sport would be we need to be able to jump very well. We need to be able to move side to side. And one of the most important, reaction. We need to be able to react really well and really fast, okay? So if these are our demands of the sport, okay, if our demands are we need to be strong, we need to be powerful, we need to be able to jump, and we need to be able to move side to side, that's where we can come in and we need to reverse engineer that stimulus. So it all comes down to, in the strength world, the stimulus and the adaptation. What can I provide to get out on the other end? Okay, that's it's simple. It gets down to this simple perspective of stimulus and adaptation. So when we're looking at programming for these schools or programming for these athletes or these students, we need to have that in mind. And that's our end goal, okay? We always can have our North Star, weed through kind of the BS if we have that in mind. My biggest thing that when I'm at the college or at my private gym is being able to explain to your athletes, this is a good thing to write down, being able to explain to your athletes why you're doing what you're doing, okay? So if we're doing a, let's just say a back squat, for example, okay? It's generally known the back squat does help a lot, and it can help with a lot of what we're trying to accomplish, but why? How can we provide them the roadmap? Because as soon as they know the why, they buy in instantly, every single time. Building a culture starts with that. Building a culture starts with the why. It doesn't start with the rah, because you're not gonna go up there your first day as a strength coach or a sport coach. All right, guys, we're gonna yell and we're gonna scream and we're gonna have fun and we're gonna do all this stuff. Why would we do that? We don't know you, it's not that fun. It's all about this. Building that foundation so that they trust you, that you can know, and it sounds crazy, but it all comes down to this why, okay? And then good versus great athletes, guys. This is something that we've all seen. We've all seen the people, hey, these guys are D1, D2 NAI bound, and these guys aren't, okay? So one of the things that helped me kind of put things in perspective is numbers. And what we want to look at is nowadays, unfortunately, training just in the summer isn't going to cut it, okay? Training in the summer just isn't going to cut it. When we look at the whole athlete life cycle as a piece of a pie, okay? If we're looking at the full athlete life cycle and we're looking at off season, our off season or summer competition, summer time is usually the off season. That is only 38% of the entire athlete life cycle of that year, okay? So yes, we can get a lot done in that time, but what about the other 62? That's the most important part. So we as strength and conditioning coaches or sport coaches of any sport need to find a way to be a great coach in season. We need to find a great way to make sure that we can be the best for them at the 62% and the 38, not just the 38. Because I came from that small school that PE teachers are doing the strength and conditioning, and honestly, that's what has to be done. Resources aren't there, right? I've been in those situations, but the summer pales in comparison to what you can get done in the rest of the year. And so every school has their summer program, and I would say keep hammering that. But if you had the ability to do stuff during season, Coach Walker, one of my best mentors, one of the most wholeheartedly greatest people on this earth, Bowman, and then he was in Bismarck for a while. He gave a speech yesterday, and just being, how do I put this? Being consistent all the way throughout the season. He's doing track work, he's doing swimming work, and strength and conditioning. So we have to have this holistic approach in the 62%, okay? So takeaways, I try to give you guys the implementation page I gave you guys, and then takeaways on each one of these slides. You're gonna see on this next slide, and the takeaways are it all starts in the foot. We're gonna start getting into the tactical, the tangible stuff that we're gonna be talking about today. It all starts in the foot. If the foot's weak, it doesn't matter how much you can squat. okay? And you're gonna hear me say this, I'm a huge barbell guy. I'm a proponent of a barbell, getting strong, loading the spine, doing those things. But it doesn't matter if the foot's weak, okay? And you're gonna see a great example of that here. So that if you cannot support the strength, it doesn't matter, okay? Any questions as of that at all? Good? All right. So I'm gonna play these, we'll break them down a little bit, but the difference between a good sprint and an okay sprint, okay? These are some of my high school athletes, both junior over here, senior over here, very, very great athlete, both of these guys. So let's just take a look at this one real quick. Again, think about it's all in the foot. Okay, and then let's take a gander at this one here. So let's get to the part right about here. And then right about there. So when we talk about it all starts in the foot, guys, and I know as a strength and conditioning coach, we're supposed to be this rah-rah, we're supposed to let's squat heavy weight, let's clean, let's do all these things, and we do that. But this is the prerequisite. This is the boring stuff. This is the stuff that can be done every single day, the prehab work that can really make the difference, more than a clean, more than a bench press, more than a squat, okay? So what we're seeing right off the bat, guys, is we're gonna have a heel strike, okay? A very severe heel strike at that. Okay, and it's not that he doesn't, that he's trying to do this. We as strength coaches and sport coaches outside of track, we assume every athlete knows how to sprint. We assume that. It's just a natural thing. We assume that they know how to sprint. I've seen it from, I've had a few NFL players all the way down to middle school kids. It's not that, that's not the case, okay? That is not the case. So we're seeing a big heel strike here, and the biggest thing that we're gonna talk about here in a little bit is what's called attacking back in everything that we do, attacking back. So if I'm here, I need to always be trying to pull the ground back as hard as I can. That's the only thing that's going to make me go forward. With Van here, this is a little quote that I always say, is he is working off last steps acceleration right now, okay? He's working on last steps acceleration right now. So he's not making himself go further at this point, even a few milliseconds ahead when his foot is on the ground. Reason being, his hip is directly behind his foot. So for us, if I was here, the only way that I'm gonna be able to produce myself forward is if my hip is stacked on the leg and I'm attacking back, okay? And then the biggest thing that we talked about, attacking with the foot, or it all starts in the foot. When we have such a hard heel contact, we can't use the springiness, the rubber band that is our arch on our foot, okay? Very, very important, quite possibly the most important thing on the human body. It's the only thing that is in contact with the competition floor. If we have a weak foot, this is what's gonna happen. We're not gonna have a uniform sprint, okay? So if you look at Aiden over here, his heel never touches the ground or very minimally on the swing phase, okay? So very minimally, you can always slide a credit card underneath that. And the reason being is he has a strong arch. His arch is that natural spring. We can actually propel ourselves forward. If I could draw a straight line on the back side, his hip is right over his foot or behind, or ahead, so that we can actually push the ground back. So this is something that, is very, very important. And then another big thing, you can see that he's a little bit further along in his phase, but how high the hip levels are, okay? So we're driving the hips up rather than projecting out. So I always give a cue, and you guys can look at this on all of your athletes, specifically track. Take a picture of them out of their starts or a video, and you draw a big circle around them. The best cue that makes kids just this much faster is break the circle horizontally rather than breaking the circle vertically when you come out of your blocks, okay? If we can break it horizontally, you're already in a better stance than if you were coming up, okay? Any questions on this breakdown here at all? So this is a concept as we progress forward that changed my perspective on everything. And it's movement, not movements, okay? When we think about athletes and we think about exercises, we have to look, a lot of times we get caught up and get married to movements, okay? We get married to the back squat. We get married to the front squat. I'm a hang clean guy. I'm going to hang clean, okay? If we can look at athletic movement as that, as a movement rather than these movements or these exercises, it's going to open things up a little bit. Like we talked about, the combination of primal movement patterns through space, okay? Being able to combine these primals, not we're going to squat to squat. And a big thing that I always tell my athletes is when, say we're doing lunges, right? And this goes back to that culture, that why. And they ask, like, why are we lunging? And I tell them, we're not lunging to make you a better lunger. We're lunging to make you a better sprinter. So we need to mimic the demands of that sprint in our lunge, okay? And on that additional resources sheet, I give you guys all the cues of everything that you're looking for in a lunge, because the lunge could be one of the most powerful things for sprinters, for wrestlers, for football players, done well. Okay, and so I won't go over that. You guys can take a gander at that and ask me questions. But right off the bat, we always have speed coaches and strength coaches because it's so dense, right? There's always speed and there's always strength guys. That's how this industry has boiled down to. And with that, I think the responsibility of the strength coach is as it states here. Responsible for establishing and maintaining a strength and conditioning program with the three major goals of improving athletic performance, reducing athletic injuries, and teaching lifelong movement skills. So if we have a responsibility to improve athletic performance and we're not teaching sprinting, I think we're leaving a lot on the table. A lot on the table, okay? Like I said, I'm a barbell guy and I love being in the weight room and love doing those things. But I would say, my professional opinion, the sprinting work is as important or more important. We need to have that. What the barbell does for us, it's a tool, right? It gets us better at this, but we have to have both. And I think that is where we've had this divide in the strength and conditioning world. It's barbell or nothing, that's what we're doing, and then it's practice. If you think about football practice, guys, for all my football coaches here, very rarely do football coaches teaching sprint mechanics. It's conditioning. Get on the line, let's hit it, okay? Even at Dickinson State, when I was at Dickinson State for a few years, in the summer, we did maybe 3 to 4 installments of true biomechanics and running. It was always get after it, get on the line, sprint, and then our rest isn't there. So when we're under fatigue like that, we're not going to actually get to max velocity. We're not going to actually get to where we're actually getting faster. We're just getting in better shape, I guess. And then a study, I'll read it for you. A study done in January 2022 in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning called "To Measure Peak Velocity in Soccer, Let the Players Sprint." This kind of gives us a basis of why we do this. Alongside our main findings, we find peak velocity attained in the sprint sessions was clearly faster than velocities obtained in soccer activities. Coaches are therefore advised to include additional specific drills to prepare players for matches with a suitable stimulus of maximal sprinting speed. Long story short, in training, we can get a better and a heavier adaptation and stimulus than when we're actually playing the sport. So we need to make our training harder than the sport. So this just shows us that it's that much important that even in soccer, when you're actually having the dribbling of the ball, you're never reaching max velocity. Never reaching max velocity. The only time in any sport, where do you think that you would actually reach full max velocity? In track, in 100 meter, 200 meter, 400. 400 is kind of iffy there. But that's why it's so important, guys. I think this is that study right there shows us why strength coaches need to have this. And yes, it's something to take on, but I think it's our responsibility. And if you're a PE teacher, I think it's the responsibility. If we're looking at really making those kids better, I think we're leaving it on the table if we don't have it. So takeaways: don't get married to your movement. Don't get married to your movements. Don't let your downfalls, and I've been guilty of this, don't let your downfalls become your athletes. That I throughout my early career, that's all I did. I only back squat. I'm not a front squat guy. I'm not going to make my athletes front squat because they suck. You know, don't let your downfalls become your athletes. And then think about it as human or athlete movement, not movements, okay? And now we get into why this is important, guys. Both of Odell's left leg ACL ruptures. And this talks about why it's so important with the foot. I'm going to play both of them for you guys, and we'll kind of look at what's happening here. Left leg, now. Right there. That's his first when he was at Cleveland, and then just recently in the Super Bowl. Everybody knows number 55 in this room. Left leg, now. Okay? Doesn't seem like he's doing anything out of the ordinary, right? Okay, let's break this down here real quick. So as Odell comes up and he plants this foot, we talk about all problems starting in the foot, okay? So what happens, guys, I know it's kind of hard to see up here, but when I plant this left foot, I'll show over there too. When I plant this left foot, what happens is it's not a weakness in the glute. It's not a weakness in the knee or the hip. It's that collapsing of that arch, okay? The one thing that is in contact with the ground, the collapsing of that arch. Naturally, my arch sits like this. I could fit my finger underneath there. What happens here, you can see the collapsing of that arch, which caused what's called internal tibial rotation, as we internally rotate, and then the forward projection of that kneecap, okay? So how do we solve this? And that's all this foot training, okay? Making sure that foot can stabilize, because that's a lot of force. But what happened is he plants, as I showed over here, guys, you plant and it internally rotates just like this. That foot flattens out, okay? So this can be reduced. Freak accidents do happen, but this can be reduced. Same concept on the first one, or excuse me, on this most recent one. Right there. That's about as close as I'm going to get. So we get internal rotation of this tib. It drives this way, and then we get forward projection of that kneecap due to the foot. Okay? So these things can be reduced. Any soccer coaches, especially women's soccer coaches, like this is bad. This happens all the time, way too often. Okay? So these are stuff that we can look at and hopefully solve. Obviously, contacts are different, but we can solve this, guys. So how do we do this? And I have three pillars, okay? And the first is in the weight room. The first two are in the weight room, okay? So how can we solve this? How can we make our athletes better? And how can we become more athletic, okay? And the first thing comes down to what's called compensatory acceleration. Anybody that's been in the strength world loves lifting weights. We lost a legend, or the legend, just a few days ago. Louis Simmons, I'm getting goosebumps about it. Louis Simmons was a godfather of this industry. And he preached this till, I'm not going to say till he was blue in the face. That's bad. He preached it a lot, okay? This was kind of his bread and butter. And very simply, and this is something that you guys can take right now and implement it with every athlete, and it helps build the culture. As mechanical advantage increases, so does velocity. In layman's terms, as the lift gets easier, velocity should increase, okay? So the hardest part of a squat, especially in tailored jeans here, is all the way at the bottom, okay? So that's going to be the slowest position, but as we start accelerating, as we start going up, velocity needs to increase. How do I implement that with a high school kid? You bring it back to their why. You bring it back to why they're doing what they're doing, okay? You have to bring it back to that point for them to understand it, and to do it without thinking, okay? So when we take a punch step in football, I'm never doing it 50%. When I do a 100-meter dash, I'm never doing it 50%. So instead of, this is very important, instead of going just from point A to point B, we need to go from point A to point B as fast as we can. every single rep, every single set, every single session, every single athlete, okay? We need to go from point A to point B as fast as we possibly can. No matter, and this is something we always tell our athletes, no matter if the bar, if it's 45 pounds or 500 pounds, you need to move it as fast as you can, okay? You need to move it as fast as you can. Some are gonna be slower, but using that intent, and we talk about intent is king. This gets kids fired up. This draws the line for performance for those kids. They can actually see, wow, this is making me better at my punch step. This is making me better on a breakaway on a basketball court. This is making me better on a jab double or a high C. This is making me better, okay? And today, I talk about it, I give you a little bit in the further reading, but this is applicable to all our primal movements. Today, I'm not gonna go over how to bench, how to squat, how to do these things. We know how to do that, and they're all important, they have to be done. But this has to be applied to all of your primal movements. When you're on the bench, which I don't do a ton, here, we're snapping it up like we're throwing a punch, okay? On a clean, you're gonna see a great example of one of our defensive linemen, absolute stud. This is 315 pounds, by the way, no matter how heavy it is. He just tossed that like 6 inches, 8 inches into the air. He's an absolute stud, but no matter what the weight is, he's moving it fast. And then this is on the lower end. This is on our belt squat machine. No matter the weight, you're going up and down and up and down and up and down as fast as you possibly can. Such a small thing that can completely change athletes, guys. I've seen it. And as soon as that light bulb goes off, it's a completely different ball game. Because now they can see that the back squat is making them a better athlete, that the hang clean is making them a better athlete, instead of just doing hang cleans to hang clean. Remember, we don't do hang cleans to make you a better hang cleaner. We do them to make a better athlete, okay? And the spirit of speed, guys. Simply tie everything to why you're doing it, and you'll get there, I promise, okay? Takeaways, intent is more important than weight, okay? We still move a lot of heavy weight, as you can see. But the intent of that weight, or excuse me, the intent of that speed is much better. And again, I am a barbell guy. I'm big on that, but the barbell is not the answer to every question, okay? It has a lot of downfalls. And I'm not asking for your school or you personally as a PE teacher to buy $1,000 worth of equipment. You can do it in very minimal ways, okay? Secondly, the second pillar is plyometrics, guys. And obviously, besides maybe creatine, probably the most researched thing in the strength world. One of the most researched things, hands down, and it just has so many benefits. And as I was actually getting this presentation ready, I found some pretty cool, interesting research for prepubescent kids as well, okay? So what do plyometrics accomplish? And when we're looking at plyos, we're looking at, think of a rubber band, guys. Okay, so our tendons, our ligaments are like a rubber band. As soon as they get stretched, they don't want to be stretched. They're going to snap back to neutral, and then they're going to snap back. So it's what's called our stretch shortening cycle. If something gets stretched, it's going to snap like a rubber band back. That's all plyometrics are doing. And you guys can make these so simple. Okay, Dickinson State for 40 years, we did dot drills. Box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4. Okay, very easy, and you're going 1 to 2 as fast as you can, 2 to 4 as fast as you can. Short bouts, being very fast. And again, this gets us back to training the foot, being up on that toe at all times. It's hugely important, guys. So what do they accomplish? They make the joints stiffer. They make the joints more powerful. That's what we're looking, especially like that younger age of kids. They're like baby giraffes coming out of the womb, kind of like can't really walk very well, don't know what they're doing, don't know where the class is. This stuff can help that very quickly. Okay, so the study, I like reading the titles of the study. Systematic Review, Effects of Plyo Training on Physical Fitness in Team Sports, December 2016. So generally, short-term plyometrics anywhere from 2 to 3 sessions to 4 to 16 weeks, improves jump height, sprint, and agility in all team sports players. Literature shows that short PT, short plyos, less than 8 weeks, has potential to enhance a wide range of athletic performances in children and young adult amateur players. The present review also pointed the effects of PT were greatest in pre-adolescent athletes in team sports. This helped them in their 10 and 20 meter sprints, okay? Furthermore, it has been reported that in prepubescent athletes, enhancements are more considerable in initial acceleration time than secondary acceleration time. What that means is these plyos are going to help you on your start. And I'm going to go over here in a little bit why the start is so important, okay? Why do I have a lot of work on the first 3 steps? And it's because we don't hardly ever reach terminal velocity. Okay, so that's very, very important here. We have Troy Berg, Mr. Wrestling, 2 years in a row in North Dakota. Just an absolute stud, heading over to Jamestown to play baseball, where, I mean, he could have wrestled D1 anywhere he wanted, really. But very simple, guys. Get something small, have them jump over it, but look what he's doing. As soon as he touches the ground, I always talk about a bouncy ball. You're on a tempo, you're just trying to touch and go and touch and go. I have crazy, crazy plyos that are just off the wall crazy, but the simple stuff works for these high school kids, okay? The simple stuff works. And then we got Jay Liggins, played a while at the Philadelphia Eagles, and then went and played for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for a little while, was a Dickinson State Blue Hawk. We are getting him ready for training camp at this point. But now we're looking at load and explode. Okay, load and explode, looking at keeping very sturdy on your 1 foot. So simple, but NFL guys are doing it. Okay, this is a NFL corner. 6'3", very big dude, and he's had great success. And then this is also Jay Liggins turning gravity off and jumping further than any of us would wish of. So this is that range, guys. Very fast, very controlled, very explosive. Simple, 3 simple things that can be thrown in that can really, really help, guys, okay? Any questions on the plyos at all? Any coaches do plyos every once in a while? Great, great.
Coach, with the progression, do you just jump straight into going as fast as you can, like those hurdle hops? Do you focus on sticking the landing first and then build into that?
Yep. So I have like a 4-tier progression. We always do, first, I have them actually stand on a box and learn how to land. Majority, I'm not going to say all, 90% of all athletic injuries happen upon landing, not on takeoff, okay? So when you think about absorption of force, that's very important. So I have them step on a box, and you could do this on a team sport. Have them step on a bleachers. Everybody hop off. What we're looking for is a toes forward, shoulder width, toes forward. You're going to hear me talk about toes forward here in a little bit, so that we know how to land. Then we do a jump and stick. Jump, stick, land it. You can hold it. And then we look at bouncing, and then we look at single leg, and then we look at side-to-side plyos. Yep. Great question. All right. And then our last tier on here is med ball work, guys. I'm a huge proponent of med ball work. 3 things that you can implement now: compensatory acceleration, plyometrics, and med ball work. Hay bale, whatever it is, guys. I've done it all. Bricks out in the grass. Your training implements for track and field. Quite possibly one of the most important things. Derek Woodsky, does anybody know that name? Derek Woodsky, Olympic shot putter, hammer thrower, discus. One of my decent friends. He's a very good dude. Got to meet him and become fairly good friends with Derek Woodsky. And he talked about, as the progression throughout his whole athletic career, he said, "Colby, what do you think the most important thing is for every athlete to do?" And I was young. I was like, well, we got to have a progression of front squats. We got a back squat. I think cleans are in there. And he's like, you're getting a little overboard. Just like Tyler Costin said, make it simple. He said every single athlete needs to throw as hard as they can, and they need to sprint as hard as they can. Most important thing. And the reason why I'm such a big proponent of med ball work, guys, think about a back squat, okay? there is a track from point A to point B. You can only go so far, okay? You can't go through the floor and you can't jump with the barbell. So there's this A to B that you only can go that far. With med ball work, we've all know what a governor or a govern is in our vehicle. Taking that out allows you to go to max speed, correct? All vehicles have these. So what med ball work does is takes that out. Now we can truly, freely produce power with no restrictions. With the back squat, yes, you can go as fast as you can, but it's only point A to point B. With a med ball granny toss, when we're driving like this, we're at full extension. We're using every single resource that our body has, okay? That's why I like med balls so much, and they're so powerful for athletes. So study 1, effects of 12 weeks of med ball training on high school baseball players, okay? Overarm throwing is very complex, which depends on several components. Med ball training allows exercises to be performed at relatively high speeds compared with classical strength training, using free weights or machines, but with greater force than those performed during normal sport competition. So we're creating more power, more velocity than regular strength training, and we're creating just as much or more velocity and power as our competition. This is why it's so important, guys. Very, very important thing to implement. So these are a few of our college football players just doing some very basic stuff. We got a med ball crossover step, it's called. Producing power, crossing over, hammering it into the wall, okay? And then we got a single leg med ball slam looking at posterior chain. All this does is it mimics our sprint. The stretching of our hamstring, the shortening of our hamstring, okay? Very simple. Again, talking about progressions. Start with regular med ball slams. Bang, 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 get after it, okay? This is one of our All-American linebackers, Nick Miller. So yeah, simple stuff like this, guys, because the application to sport is almost identical to the demands that the sport is asking for. So again, this gets us back. What are the demands? Make sure the stimulus is in line, okay? So takeaways: allows athletes to express true power and velocity, and mimics demands of the sport, okay? And then here we go, we'll talk kind of the toes forward mentality, okay? So on social media as of recent, there's been kind of this takeover from a guy named knee over toes guy. Okay, and he's kind of taken over the social media aspect, and in every gimmick, in every pyramid scheme, in every new thing that happens, everybody gets really excited about it and does it all the time, and then it goes away. I think what we need to do is use it sparingly. We need to use it as accessory work. We don't have to replace the back squat or replace the Bulgarian squat, but we need to have this as an accessory. And why this is so important: if you take a look at all these awkward joint angles that these athletes are getting into, this is the demands that they need. This guy is SMU's, this coach that posted this right here, SMU's strength and conditioning coach, one of the best in the world. He's not at Alabama, he's not at Michigan, he's at SMU. And he does very, very good work that a lot of traditional strength and conditioning coaches would be like, why aren't you just bench and deadlift, you know? This is the stuff that can be implemented now and very easily so that you guys can get your athletes in positions that they're going to be in during the sport. Before I show you that video, I kind of want to show a quick little demonstration. I'm going to need a partner here. Anybody? Let's go over here. So we talk about what's called the toes forward mentality, guys, the toes forward concept. And everything we do in sports comes down to a toes forward position, okay? A lot of times, like you think about traditional power lifters, if we're looking to squat the most amount of weight, we're gonna externally rotate our hips and we're gonna squat a lot more weight. But that's why every CrossFitter and power lifter is not in the NFL. It doesn't apply, okay? It works you, but it does not apply. It does not go straight across, okay? So all I'm gonna have you do, I've never done it on carpet, but we'll see how it goes. So all I'm gonna have you do is sit here and turn your feet out for me and just sit down, just like this. Turn your feet out. No like ACL injuries or anything?
No, I'm good.
Oh, good. So I'll have you sit just a little bit. what we're looking at, guys, why toes forward is so important, okay? We're talking about producing power, producing into the ground. That's what makes us go faster, and that's what makes us do all the athletic movements. So he just sits here, and I do this. I can move him pretty dang easily, okay? He's unable, with how his body works, you can relax for a second, he's unable to produce power into the floor, and on a normal surface, usually when I pull that leg, I moved him fairly easily, but usually it goes, and it pulls him right from out underneath him. Okay, so now I'm going to have you go in a toes forward position, just like that, perfectly toes forward. I'm going to have you sit and try not to let me move you, okay? So I'm going to be pulling quite a bit now. He can directly put force into the ground and not be moved, okay? So now, thank you very much. So now, when we're in a toes forward position, either coming out of the blocks, think about wrestling, taking a nice hard jab double. We're going to be toes forward and we're going at the person, okay? In volleyball, when we need to change directions, we start here. We never start here, okay? So we're always starting in this toes forward position that is advantageous to athletic movement, okay? So if we can implement this now, if you can implement this in everything that you do, hey, Tommy, go watch your feet, toes forward, okay? Make sure that you can really hammer that home, because it's not just about me wanting to go toes forward because it looks good. It's all about what we do in that toes forward position. It helps a lot. And that drill was by John Welborn, a very good friend of mine. Played 10 years in the NFL for the Chiefs, the Eagles a little bit, but he talked about the bucket step. When you see an offensive lineman break back and take this big bucket step, bull rush, right in their chest. They're off balance. They can't move, okay? But if that offensive lineman is able to stay low, kick step, I'm now here in a toes forward. I can produce and I can stay grounded, okay? It's simple stuff, but if we can just make sure we stay out of that externally rotated toes out position, we're gonna be in a much better position, okay? And then that gets us back to this. All these athletes are in a toes forward position no matter where they're pointing. She just took this dig way off on the other side of the court and she's landing toes forward, okay? So now we get into the knees over toe. So why do we do the knees over toe? Again, like we talked about, getting the stimulus that the athletes need in their sport. But then we look at the Odell's knee injuries, and this is exactly what happened. The forward projection of the kneecap, internal tibial rotation. And so we can actually prime these athletes with small stuff like this so that that never, ever happens, okay? So we have here, we're working on the arch with one of our linebackers here. We're working on his arch, getting him up and elevated. The arch works. You'll actually have kids feel like they're going to cramp in the bottom of their feet. That's very important, because what that shows, instead of just putting a insole in the shoe, and long distance runners, it's a little bit different. We're looking for comfort. But when you're putting insoles in shoes, what that does is it artificially props up the arch. Well, then your arch isn't the spring, the insert's the spring, okay? So if I wasn't in dress clothes and all this, you'd see me wearing Vans. That's all I wear, okay? Because it allows the foot to stay grounded. It allows the foot to do what it's supposed to do. The arch is supposed to work, okay? So we have him working on his arch and driving. The cue is drive the knee over your toe. You can see here, his ankle's very tight, but we're still able to get over that toe. This is something that's very, very important, but again, like I said, accessory to. You don't have to just throw this in and completely revamp everything. Accessory to all your other stuff, okay? Very, very important, guys. And then lastly, guys, last two slides here is training speed outside of the weight room. What's important, okay? And so we talked about the heel strike and we talked about a good sprint. And these are two examples again. And what I want to emphasize here is why I emphasize the acceleration so much. And you guys could write this down if you wanted and tell your athletes this and why it's so important. But when we're looking at high-level athletes, any type of athlete really, in the very first step of your max velocity, we're going to reach 25% of your max velocity in the first step. In the first step, you're already a quarter as fast as you're ever going to be, okay? In the second step, you're going to be 40% of your max velocity. Okay, and then as you go to the third, fourth, and fifth, it gradually gets bigger. It's this gradual curve that we start getting faster, and then it comes down. So I would argue in track and everything, in any sport, the most important is those first 3 steps. Okay, if you can get those first 3 steps, they're going to have a kick on everybody else. That's what we need to work on. Okay, so again, I'll just breeze through this real quick. Like I told you guys, I talk. So as you can see right here, this is what we call, close. The heel strike, but what one of my best mentors ever, Coach Pete Leno, he asked me, he said, Colby, how do you think you make people faster? And I was like, I guess I don't know that answer. And he said, stop slowing down. You become faster by not slowing down, because this step right here is what's called a break step. We are out in front of us. I'm working on last steps acceleration at that point. Okay, so I'm not doing anything for myself to propel myself further. So Coach Leno would say the way to become faster is to stop slowing down. So we need to make ourselves more efficient. Okay, so there's that break step, and then Q, very elite 100 and 200 meter runner here in North Dakota. As you can see now, that's a perfect pause, Colby. His hip is now stacked by his midfoot or his toe. So when he accelerated off that one, now he's already doing something for himself on this second step. So now he's moving, and he's actually producing that force, okay? And then last slide here, guys. Everybody knows who this guy is, my man Walter, and he made a living off of hill sprints, okay? And this is the most easy implementable thing that you guys could do. Off season, in season, obviously, if we're in season, we cut down on the volume, but running hills allows you to be resisted. I would say, obviously, the knee over toe, the Plyos, and the med ball are all important, but this is the cream of the crop, okay? Research shows it. These are 3 different research articles, not just one, showing how effective it is, and I'll spare you the time on the research articles, but it actually showed from a control group and a group that was just running hills and downhill hill work, was much more advantageous and made the kids quicker, max running speed, and a better step rate. Because when we're uphill, we have to get the foot in the ground more often to get us up, okay, instead of striding out. So this just shows you the power of actually running those hills, and you can really do some big things for your athletes. And the last thing on this is I always talk about is if we're trying to get better at something, say we're trying to learn something from a book. If we read the same page on the book 10 times, we're not going to get anything done, even if we just do it 3 times, okay? We have to stay consistent with our athletes. Find a routine, find something, reach out, and we'll kind of talk about that here in a second. Reach out. If you need help implementing these things, ask me or anybody else, okay? I think we have a responsibility to make our athletes the best people we can, and that comes back to our mantra, better athletes, but better humans, okay? We need to make these kids better humans in this world, okay? So here, guys, my email, you guys can pull out your phones too if you get a chance. My email, and on that first QR code that you guys had, has my cell phone number, my gym number, my email, everything, okay? On this is my Instagram, @coach_Wortman. We post up a bunch of free content just showing you guys knee over toe, sprinting, X, Y, and Z. Save that Instagram post. You can implement it, okay? And then Spotify, I run a podcast called Next Level Radio on Spotify, so that is the Spotify one. And then lastly is the Team Builder QR code. So this just takes you to our Team Builder site. Team Builder is our online software that we use. So as I mentioned at the start, we work with Trinity, we work with Trinity athletes, DHS athletes, all this stuff, but then Mission High School in Missoula, or up by Missoula, and then Wright High School, we've implemented a whole plug and play for the PE teacher. The PE teacher has the program. It's on every kid's phone if they are allowed phones in the weight room. If they're not, it's on the teacher's. The teacher writes it up. You have a full 365 days of programming. Every athlete and every student, okay? Not just the athletes. So this is something that we do. I just started it a few years ago, and we're trying to bring strength and bring true professional strength and conditioning to the high school. Because as a college strength and conditioning coach, the hardest thing is fixing a broken kid when they come to college, both physically and mentally, okay? So if we can help those kids off, that's all it's all about, okay? So those are those three, Instagram, Spotify, and Team Builder. Any questions at all? Yes?
What was that over? Is it W or V or?
W, sorry, yes. W, Wortman is the last name. Just how it's spelled, Wortman. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.